Recording in progress.
Man, I'm gonna get this right one day or another. All right. This is like the third time I'm trying to record this today. I keep getting interrupted. Anyways, this is kind of a little bit different of a based marriage podcast today. I'm talking about courage, specifically courage of Catholics. You have to have courage. Oh my gosh, if you don't have courage, you've got nothing. Seriously. First of all, you have to be able to, whatever, I'm not going to go down that path. I was listening to Tucker Carlson. He interviewed Carrie Prejean Bowler. You might remember her as, well, go look her up. 20 years ago, there was a big controversy because she was running for Miss California. And when they asked her about whatever question and answer, she said, marriage is between a man and a woman. It blew up into a big thing. It was a scandal of the day. It divided the country because that's what the people who craft these sorts of questions and who control the media and everything else like to do. They like to put people through shame rituals in order to get them to stop believing whatever truth they believe in and shape the country into embracing or being afraid of telling the truth. Anyways, she was on the Presidential Committee for Religious Freedom with a bunch of other people. Some names you know, some names you don't. And she made a statement at one of these committee meetings about being a Catholic and that more or less about how the Catholic faith is a new Israel, that is a theologically accurate statement. That is a major doctrine within the Catholic Church, that there was the Old Testament Israel, and then when Jesus came as the Messiah, the Israelites, the Jews were no longer God's chosen people, that those who followed Christ then became God's chosen people, which included Jews who became Christians, who converted, who were baptized, and also Gentiles who were not part of the original Jewish faith, but who were the tree branch that was grafted onto the tree. So all of those who followed Christ became God's chosen people. This is scriptural. So she made this statement, I think with particular context within support for or opposition to Zionism. She expressed major concern as a Catholic about the genocide going on in Gaza, especially about innocent civilians and women and children who were being unalived in Gaza, and that she had a moral opposition to genocide and to the killing of innocents. And this triggered Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who was also on the committee. They were equals on this particular committee, but like a lot of the Texas politicians nowadays, Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott, a whole bunch of others who are rabid Zionists, it's almost like there's a competition here in Texas for which politician can be the more rabid Zionist, which one can be more in support of a foreign country than the others. And Abbott and Patrick and Cruz seem to always feel like they're falling behind because they're always making up for it. There's like an overcompensating here. It's a weird thing. Anyways, there were others who were on that committee, including Bishop Barron, Cardinal Dolan of New York, the recently retired Cardinal Dolan, and then also Archbishop Cordileone of San Francisco. And she said that she reached out to each one of those three and said, hey, I'm being attacked for my religious speech. My freedom of religion is being attacked. We're on the Religious Freedom Committee together, and my religious freedom is being attacked. I'm a Catholic. These are the theological positions. These are doctrines of the church. I'm being attacked. Will you come to my aid? Will you help me out? Will you speak out in support of me on this committee against these other members who are basically requiring that that I have to be a Zionist? And she said that they won't speak out. Those three bishops will not speak out. They won't defend her religious speech. Not only religious speech, but they won't uphold Catholic teaching that, hey, yeah, no, this is true. Catholics don't have to be Zionists. And there's a lot about Zionism that's contrary to the Catholic faith. she said that they won't speak out because they're scared. Fair enough. There's a lot of things that are scary. The Apostle Peter, the first pope, he ran away from Rome because he was afraid of being martyred. And God turned him around and said, no, go back. Your duty is to go witness to others. All of the apostles ended up being martyred. Even John, who was... he didn't die from his martyrdom, but he is considered a martyr in the faith because they tried to boil him alive in oil. And then he was eventually exiled and died in exile. But he's considered a martyr because he went and suffered through a martyr's death without actually having died. But all the apostles, minus Judas, were all martyred. And the argument is often, well, my first duty is to my diocese, to take care of my diocese. Well, first off, you're replaceable. You are. All of the bishops of every diocese are replaceable. They've always been replaceable. They have always been replaced, sometimes with better, sometimes with worse. But essentially the claim that you have to take care of your diocese essentially at all costs, even keeping your mouth shut when you see people committing idolatry, when you see there are anti-Catholic cultures and religions that are filling the vacuum in our culture, you have a duty to speak up, to try to save those souls as well, because you steer the culture by speaking out with the truth of the Catholic faith. I'm reminded of when Hitler was in power and he started the euthanasia program. They had killed, I think, before the end of it, they'd killed about 300,000 people through the euthanasia program, people with disabilities. That was a pretty demonic program. That was awful. But it was the Catholic bishops that spoke up against Hitler and said, hey, wait a minute. No. The Catholic bishops in Germany, they hadn't fled to some other country. They hadn't fled to the UK and then told Hitler, hey, no, you shouldn't be doing this. They were there in Germany and they said, hey, this euthanasia program is bad news. You need to stop this. This is immoral. This is wrong. You must stop this. And unlike the Democrat Party, unlike unlike the Canadians, Hitler actually stopped the euthanasia program when the Catholic bishops turned on him and said, hey, you got to quit this. You must do this. You must stand up for Catholics. You must, if you're going to protect your flock, I got to let those few in my flock get eaten so I can protect the whole. Isn't that exactly what the Jews did when they killed Christ? It's better that one man die than for us to lose power. Isn't that exactly what it is? And so you're saying, well, it's better that Carrie Prejean Bowler or Matt Seba get taken out than for the whole diocese to suffer because I'm removed. Like, for one, you're just not that important. And for two, God can raise up plenty of substitute bishops to fit in your space. You are not irreplaceable. The pride, the arrogance that you couldn't be replaced. Bishop Strickland here, he got replaced a couple of years ago. He got shit canned by a bunch of forces within the diocese and forces without the diocese. And for good reason. He said, I'm not shutting down the Latin Mass. I'm not going to hurt my people that way. I'm not shutting down the Latin Mass. And so people within the diocese who also came after me later, like I'm some big wahoo. Anyways, they reported him to Rome, and Rome, which is populated by apostates and idolaters and sodomites, decided, hey, we're going to yank you. Actually, we don't even know if that's true, because Bishop Strickland was not given any piece of paper from anybody with anybody's signature on it. He was told, Rome wants you to resign. You must resign. You're being removed from whatever. But he wasn't told. And if you listen to the Carrie Prejean Bowler thing, she said there were a number of times that people from that committee said, or from this office or that office said, we request your resignation. And she's like, nope. Trump appointed me. I want to see his name in paper, or I want to see him show up. He appointed me. He's the only one that can fire me. Like, She was right, because there were people in there who were more than willing to lie to her that Trump had fired her or asked for her resignation in order to try to get rid of her. And it's the thing that I talked to Bishop Strickland about when he was here a couple of times was, hey, no, demand from them that they give you a piece of paper with the Francis's signature on it, so that you know it actually came from him, and that this isn't just somebody, some nuncio or something, lying to you and trying to get you out. Because if they can lie to you and get you to quit, then congratulations, they won. And Rome never even heard about it. They didn't know a thing about it. But these bishops, they're not defending their flock. They're letting their flock get picked off one by one. And then there's what it's doing, which is great, is making these lay people stronger. And bishops don't take credit for that and go and see, well, it's necessary for them to get stronger. You're supposed to be the example. You're supposed to be the leader. And twice now we've seen Bishop Barron sitting in front of non-Catholic guests. There was Ben Shapiro and there was Dave Rubin. And both times, he didn't tell them the truth. He didn't tell Ben Shapiro, look, here's the deal. Yes, when Ben Shapiro asked him flat out, do I need to be baptized in order to get to heaven? Bishop Barron did not say, yes, you need to be baptized in order to get to heaven. Bishop Barron, there's only one path to salvation, and it requires baptism in order to get to heaven. He kind of cowered a little too. He didn't speak up to Dave Rubin, who was a gay married man, in as much as that is such a bizarre term because it's not accurate at all. Because gay people can't get married because God created marriage, not the government. And the government's just creating fabricated marriage, whether it's between one man and one woman, or one man and one man, or one woman and one woman, or a sheepdog and a coyote, whatever. It doesn't matter. Or Dennis Rodman and himself. That's not actually marriage. It's a piece of paper and a license. But it's not actually marriage, because marriage is a spiritual thing. It's a covenant between two people and God, according to a particular sacrament. Everything else is, you can call it what you want to, but it's not a marriage. So he kind of, didn't tell him the truth about things. And that Dave Rubin and his dude adopted 2 children. Like, that's sick. That does grave harm to the children. And I recall, I wish I could remember what the question was, but Dave Rubin asked a couple of questions of Bishop Barron, and Bishop Barron flunked that one too. There's a cowardice there. And then you've got Archbishop Cordileone. He has great liturgy. And Cardinal Dolan, who, after the Francis died, and I call him the Francis. I got shit canned by the Diocese of Tyler after Bishop Strickland was gone, because they didn't like some of my posts on online. I'll read these all to you another day. Not today. It's kind of long. I got a letter and everything, and I got a letter and it's signed, but we found out that Cardinal Dolan had some very private thoughts that he kind of let us in on a little bit after the Francis died. He was like, oh, maybe we'll get somebody a little more in line with tradition, a little more conservative. He's a very private guy in his opinions, apparently. But by being that quiet guy with private opinions about certain controversial topics, he, rather than furthering the Catholic Church in New York City, it's been taken over by a leftist Jew masquerading as a Muslim who is in photographs when he was a teenager with his mom and Jeffrey Epstein. Like, that guy's running New York now. New York is not becoming better after, 20 years of Cardinal Dolan. It did not become better. It did not become more Catholic. It's become more extreme in the other direction, in an anti-Catholic kind of way. And the people of New York are paying for it. Cardinal Dolan is very afraid of being outspoken. And with Archbishop Cordileone, and Cardinal Dolan even had things like, allowing the various activist groups to join the St. Patrick's Day parade. Or I think when Michael Sam got into the NFL, and rather than saying, well, great, he can play football, but, this is a thing, like, this is not a state of nature, or this is not a natural state of man. Like making a big publicity out of your sexuality like that is in a disordered sexuality. For one, your identity should not be based in that. Your identity shouldn't be in your sexuality. Like my identity isn't in my sexuality. That's reducing a person to just one part of them and using it to define their entire selves. And secondly, it encourages and leads other people to go and live that lifestyle, which is a very destructive lifestyle of those people. That's what he should have said. But because he's not saying those things, because he's not standing up to, hey, our city's being taken over by Islam, and Islam is not a friend of Catholicism. Islam, how do they treat Jesus Christ, the Messiah? And the best you can get is, well, they think he's a prophet. Well, no, he's like, go out there and have that conversation out in public and say, no, he's not just a prophet. He is the Messiah. He is God himself. He is the Son of God, and he died on the cross for your sins so that you can get to heaven. That is a thing that needs to happen. And it doesn't seem like that's been happening in large scale in the city of New York, because Catholics are being pushed out culturally. Well, there are a lot of Catholics in New York. Is it really? Who's controlling New York? And so then you have people, priests and bishops in Gaza, in Lebanon, and they're being killed. And it's nothing but crickets over here. And while all that's happening, the Jewish groups over here are inviting our bishops to go celebrate at, and this isn't a pejorative, this is just a truth, their false religious practices. Shabbat, it belongs to a false religion. The Jewish religion is a false religion. It's not the Old Testament religion continued until today and they just missed the boat with Christ. It is a completely new religion that was created after Christ of the people who rejected Christ. That's a historical fact. It's a historical fact. It was created 300 years essentially after the death of Christ. They cannot fulfill the requirements of the Mosaic covenant because the temple no longer exists. It was destroyed. It's gone. It's poof. It was destroyed. And that wasn't an accident. God allowed that to happen. Go read Josephus and Eusebius, who came after Josephus by quite some time. But the destruction of the temple, it wasn't just the destruction of the temple. It was Passover, 40 years after the death of Christ. And there were 3 million Jews in Jerusalem. And before Passover came, the Holy Spirit inspired all the holy men and women, the ones who were, it seems, not only Christians, but also men truly trying to follow the heart of God, whether or not they actually knew Christ. I'm not quite sure based on reading Eusebius's works, but he says all the holy men and women were sent to go live out in outside of town. And then the 3 million Jews in Jerusalem, there was an invasion, and then there was also a famine, and they starved to death and killed each other. And it was a bloody, violent, horrible, awful experience. And they had bodies piled up that they were just throwing them outside of the walls because there were so many bodies they could not bury them all. And so the bodies were stacked up outside of the wall of Jerusalem. This was 40 years after Christ. So it was not only the destruction of the temple, but it was the death of 3 million people, 3 million Jews specifically, as Eusebius recalls. And he was quoting Josephus in that. So these are historical facts. These are theological facts. And as these bishops stay silent, these non-Christian, non-Catholic, we have to go down to Catholic, because if you go to Christian, you're still encompassing the Zionists, and the Zionists are very anti-Catholic. Zionism is their religion, and they, like Ted Cruz came out just the other day. What was it, yesterday? Let me see. Ted Cruz was like, this is what we're up against. And it was an article Read every word of this. It's the best and most comprehensive explanation of what we're fighting. How a network of political Catholic integralists, Russian ideologues, and media provocateurs are systematically dismantling the evangelical foundation of the American right. From Insurrection Barbie. Insurrection Barbie, that's cute. This is not about Catholicism or regular Catholics, but about political Catholic integralism. It just looks like they're trying to now then divide Catholics and in order to weaken us. But the first is integralism, a pre-Vatican II political theology that holds the Catholic Church should exercise direct authority over temporal governments, that religious liberty is a Protestant error, and that a properly ordered state must subordinate itself to church teaching. I don't know about the, let's see, that the Catholic Church should exercise direct authority over temporal governments, like as a government authority itself. I don't know. That was kind of squishy back and forth for a long time. The religious liberty is a Protestant error. Yes, that's true. How's that going for it? Religious liberty. And you hear this a lot in Tucker Carlson too. Like every interview is, oh no, anybody from any religion who wants to come here is more than welcome, as long as you want to play by these rules, as long as you want to be a nice person, as long as like that's not working, because Islam is not interested in playing nice with everybody else. And I don't mean about violence. I mean, they're just happy in immigrating and breeding out literally everyone else until there's nothing left but Islam. Like from them, it's a zero-sum game on the long term, and they just want everybody gone. And the Hindus, God only knows what they want, but it's not congruent with Christianity. And if you go look at the Muslim countries, many of them are tolerant of Christians, but they're like, yeah, but you're a minority. You're no threat to us. And in the Hindu countries, they persecute the Christians violently. So when you bring both of those here, like Islam is not going to make America better. It's not going to make America more America. It's not going to make America more holy. Like there is definitely an element of order that Islam brings, but it's not aligned with like I said, the most important component is, do they believe that Jesus is the Messiah? And so Islam is millions of people on earth who are not baptized. They're not going to go to heaven unless they're baptized. So we don't want that. You can't go to heaven unless you're baptized. So the idea of religious liberty is a Protestant error. I don't mean by like we should go convert people with a sword or anything like that. But to have a government, I mean, what, it was New Hampshire as a colony at its very onset. It had 18 different languages spoken. It was like the most multicultural, the most open to religious liberty. And I think it was the Dutch who ran the colony. When the English came, they're like, nice colony, it belongs to us now. The Dutch are like, please, we multicultural too hard. We can't even do this. There are 18 different languages spoken here. We're done. We can't do it. You're more than welcome to take our colony. This is too much. And then a properly ordered state must subordinate itself to church teaching. Yes, because the Catholic Church is the fullness of truth. You'll find the natural law, adherence to the natural law in here. A whole bunch of things that work. It makes work. It makes the yoke light. And without those church teachings, you end up with just a lot of chaos and a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and a lot of misdirection, a whole bunch of other things. Anyway, so this person is trying to create all this stuff, and somebody even pointed out that it looked like it was written by AI because it was written and looked as though the Francis was still alive. Anyway, so my point being, Bishop Barron, Bishop Coeur d'Alene, Cardinal Dolan, your job is to proclaim the gospel everywhere, not just send out proxies. And not to, well, that person's getting swallowed alive by, in persecution by the culture. We're just, my job though here is to stay here safe in my chancery, and continue ministering to the people who aren't being eaten and swallowed up by the culture. That's not how that works. That's not your job. You're replaceable in those places. Maybe somebody worse for now, and maybe somebody better after that. But that's not up to you. That's God's. That's where God. That's something God owns. He owns your diocese. He owns the future. You don't. And so trying to control your diocese and the future doesn't work. There's a responsibility and a duty, but nothing you're doing isn't replaceable. But you, on your soul, you have a duty to help people work out their salvation and for you to work out your own. And by keeping your mouth shut while the rest of the country, Western civilization, is being swallowed alive by heathen and pagan religions, that's shirking your duty. And especially when you're serving on a board with another Catholic, and that Catholic is being persecuted on a board where you are serving, you have an obligation to speak up for that, especially because it's a religious freedom board. And you won't stick up for the religious freedom of another member on the board that shares the exact same religious faith that you do. And who nothing that she has said disagrees with it, but you were afraid. You were afraid of what will happen to you, or maybe you'll be kicked out of your diocese. Maybe you will lose some donors. Maybe you won't be able to go out to eat with certain people. Maybe they'll kick you out, whatever. Heck, maybe they unalive you. Isn't that why you wear the red? Isn't that why what you signed up for? Have courage. There are a lot of us lay people out here having courage. I had courage. I continue to have courage, even after I got shit canned and removed as the volunteer choir director at my parish and told that I wasn't allowed to speak in the diocese anymore. That I've been banned from speaking on diocesan property or at diocesan events. I can talk on here. They can't ban me from that. I can go talk at the barbecue place. And they told me I was unfit for leadership because of things that I said that are theologically true or that are just not theological, but are my personal opinions. And they said, because it wasn't adhering to the code of conduct by the whatever. So, lay people are getting smacked around left and right. And so the bishops are silent. And then you have events. St. Mary Transpontina in 2019. So right before the whole COVID thing kicked off, when they had all those Amazonian idol worshipers and idols inside of St. Mary Transpontina in Rome, about 100 yards away, so that's about 300 feet away at the most, there was a book signing, and Auxiliary Bishop Schneider was there, and I think Father Z was there, Cardinal Sarah was there. I wish I could remember who else was there. Somebody else was there. But the idols are there, less than 100 yards away. And all of these well-known blogger and bishops and cardinals who are like the big... Oh, Cardinal Burke was there. The big conservative ones. They're the ones that are going to save us all. I think Cardinal Muller was there, I believe, as well. So you have all the guys who are supposed to be like the big, courageous, conservative prelates in the Catholic Church. And 100 yards away, what Google Earth calls a gentle stroll, in St. Mary Transpontina are a bunch of idols, wooden idols desecrating a Catholic church. And there was an image of a woman suckling a pig inside of that church as well. And none of those men did anything. They sat there and held a book signing. And I'm sitting over here in Texas, and I can find this stuff online, and it was happening at exactly the same time. This wasn't after the fact. This was a well-known fact already. And all these men then held a book signing while that's all going on, and not a single one of these men, who are supposedly the conservative, courageous type, got up out of their chairs and walked 100 yards away, which is about from here to my mailbox. None of them got up and did a thing to say, hey, you know what? This is not pleasing to Jesus Christ the Messiah. This is not pleasing to my God to have these idols in a Catholic church, in where a tabernacle exists and Jesus himself is in that tabernacle. This is offensive to God. Like, this shouldn't be in here. We got to go get these things and get them out of here. Like, if that thought ever occurred to them, there was never any evidence that it did. They did not act on that. And the Vatican didn't say a darn thing about the book signing. Do you know why? Because books and book signings don't move the needle. Do you know why you never hear a peep out of the Vatican about these pontifical high masses that Cardinal Burke and some of the others like to do? It's because they don't move the needle. They're like, oh, good. Yeah, the fanboys, they can have their pontifical high mass. Oh, we had our pontifical high mass. He wore a Kappa Magna. Like, great, a Kappa Magna. And so what? It didn't do anything about the false idol sitting inside the church 100 yards away. Doesn't do anything, a darn thing, about Cardinal Burke not being allowed to go inside of the Vatican. He was kicked out and everybody just stood there in the window laughing. Look at him, he's just milling around. Ha ha. We told him he wasn't welcome. Yeah, that sucker. He just doesn't even know. Oh, look, he's crying. Like, it doesn't do a thing. Yes, great. It's a great honor to God, but you are not doing the thing that you were required to do, which is go out publicly like I'm doing right now. Go out publicly and say, hey, Leo, you're saying a lot of things. Don't talk about him doing it. Speak at him, to him. Hey, Leo, this is problematic, man. You got to quit doing this. You are leading people to hell. You are leading people astray. You are leading them in heresy. Hey, you're doing these things. This is significant. This needs to be changed. Like, talk to him directly. There's a much different effect, like when I'm talking to the camera right now versus, oh yeah, so what was that like, Tom? Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, so what do you think that if you could talk to Pope Leo, what would you do right now? Would you? Oh, yeah. Okay. So Leo did this and Leo did that. Like, it's much different. You see the difference? It's much different sitting in on a conversation about someone than it is to be talked to directly. Talk directly. Look, the basic, Jesus Christ is the Messiah. And are you living a life pleasing to him? Are you trying to live a life that is pleasing to him? Is he pleased with what you're doing? Is he pleased with you hiding behind your diocese while some of your sheep are being picked off? Oh, well, I have to stay here and protect the bulk of the flock. You know, if those one or two sheep wander away, you know, I just got to let them get eaten because I got to protect the full flock. No, the good shepherd leaves the 99 sheep and goes to get the one. Gentlemen, please exercise some courage. We are begging you. There were a number of different orders of Latin Mass communities who kept their mouths shut when they watched he described himself as the bishop dressed in white when he visited Fatima. Y'all watched the bishop dressed in white worshiping idols inside St. Peter's Basilica and said nothing. You watched the current man dressed in white. I don't believe he's the Pope. I mean, for one, they completely broke the law with regard to how many people are supposed to vote on whether on the next Pope. I think they blew past it by 24 cardinals, 24 extra cardinals voted than what canon law says. So we're just going to pretend canon law doesn't even exist and have these invalid elections because 24 more people voted than we're supposed to according to canon law. Like, how is that even valid? It's not even valid. So starting there. And this guy, he's just as bad as the other guy. So, we're in the same spot. But of these orders, they're keeping their mouths shut because they believe, well, we'll get to keep the Latin Mass then. It's like, no, hang on a minute. We can't tolerate watching people, watching these bishops, watching any bishops or cardinals participating in idol worship in public. And it's the job of the brother bishops and cardinals to say, hey, guys, wait a minute. This is not okay. You're leading people astray. You are leading souls astray. This results in eternal damnation. Go back and repent. You guys got to repent, man. This is serious. This is the real deal. You can't do this stuff. I mean, you can do it all you want, but this is bad news. No, our God is a jealous God, and you are worshiping false gods, and he does not look kindly on that. Please go repent for the sake of yourself and for the sake of all of the people that you're leading astray. You know, the diocese in Italy, where I think, is that where? It was a diocese in Italy. I think it was where COVID hit. Either it originated in Italy. I know they say it was a China wet market, but in Europe, I think there was a diocese in Italy, and they lost like 28 priests over the period of 6 weeks due to COVID. And that diocese was also the diocese that was pushing worship of Pachamama. Like they even printed a pamphlet that said, here are prayers to Pachamama. And their priests just got wiped out. Huge loss of priests in that diocese. Like Bishop Barron, Bishop Cordileone, Carl Dolan, like by y'all being silent, people are losing their souls. And the non-Catholic elements in the world are taking up more space, and the Catholic elements in the world are shrinking. And we can't do it alone. You are the shepherd. You are here to guard the entire flock, not just the ones that keep their mouths shut, not just the ones who aren't being consumed. The quiet ones who are just working in finance or working in banking or working in an office somewhere who don't ever speak up. And you're not only supposed to protect them, you're supposed to protect all of the sheep. You're supposed to stand up for truth. You're supposed to. And the sheep are not just the Catholics. The sheep are all of the souls within the geographic bounds of your own diocese. All of the souls. Your job is to care for all of the souls, not just the Catholics. So you need to be making missionaries. And there are a lot, and making converts, and there are a lot more people coming over to America than are being converted. A lot more Hindus and Muslims coming over to America than are being converted. And you leave this poor mother out high and dry to be attacked by guys like Dan Patrick. Like, why are the bishops not pointing out, hey, Dan Patrick, Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott, what are y'all doing, man? Like, I think part of it is just that you bishops have lost that. And okay, let's say you came by it honestly. During the time of John Paul II, like he made things incredibly confusing with regard to the Jews and the religious relationship between Catholics and modern day Jews. He grew up in a Jewish household, in a Jewish neighborhood. His mom was a Jew who converted to Catholicism. His dad was Catholic. He grew up in a Jewish neighborhood and supposedly was estranged from his grandparents, which makes me think that his dad married a Jew and she converted, but the family was opposed to it, and so they lived in it near her family. In a Jewish neighborhood, but he had a Jewish girlfriend, Ginka Beer. His best friend was a Jewish boy. He had a lot of Jewish friends, and I think that he really got confused about the Jewish religion. The first audience that he gave as Pope was to his friend Jerzy Kluger, his childhood friend. If I recall correctly, he didn't even ever encourage Jerzy to convert. Almost like John Paul II believed that there were two paths of salvation. And so if that's the case, if he never converted his friend never converted, never got baptized, Catholic doctrine is his friend did not go to heaven. He didn't necessarily go to hell, but limbo is a real thing. It's a place of eternal happiness, but outside of the beatific vision, because you must be baptized in order to go to heaven. And so there's a belief that was promulgated under John Paul II that the Jews of today are just a continuation of the Jews from the Old Testament, and they just missed the boat with regard to Christ, and that's just not true at all. It was a new religion that was created 300 years after Christ. And so a lot of those bishops that we have nowadays went through seminary and went through formation back in the 80s and 90s when John Paul II was Pope, and so they picked up that bad formation. But historically, Talmudic Judaism and Rabbinic Judaism, it was created 300 years after Christ. It's a false religion. It's not the continuation of the original. Not at all. And go read John chapter 8 in the book of Acts of the Apostles if you want to really understand Christ and the early church's belief about it. And those are doctrinal statements and theological statements that are true. They're not just opinion, and they're not just as they say, oh, they were just men of their times, which is what they say in order to say, well, we don't want to really address that theology or that doctrine. We're just going to pass it off as something else. And we've evolved since then. No, like there are theological statements. Those things are true. Those doctrinal statements are true then, and they're just as true now. So there was bad formation there, and that needs to be clarified. But if you find yourself condemning Catholics who are pointing out these sacred truths, you're on the wrong side, man. And eventually that's going to catch up with you. Who are you serving? So please go out there, have some courage. Remember that your bishopric, you are ontologically different as a bishop, but your diocese doesn't belong to you. The future does not belong to you. Both of them belong to God, and you need to let him play it instead of going, no, I got to stay here and keep my mouth shut so that bad things don't happen in the future. That's up to God whether or not bad things happen in the future. And he's going to take care of you because he loves you. He's going to take care of your people because he loves them. And he's going to take care of your diocese, and he's going to take care of all the things. It's going to be all right. But you have a duty. And while you're not doing your duty, the rest of us are getting clobbered out here. So please do your duty. I beg you. We need it. It's your job. I'm not worried about losing my faith. You know, my children have more fragile faith than I do, but I'm not worried about losing my faith. But there are a bunch of souls out there that are going, forget the church, man. They're completely lacking in courage, and also the church doesn't really believe in this salvation thing anyways. They're not really pushing it hard, so it must not be that important. Going to church isn't even that important. If you're not standing up for it, people believe that it's not that important anymore. People actually believe that the church has changed in its belief about the importance of eternal salvation and going to church on Sundays and believing this and that and this doctrine and that doctrine. They think that the church has just let go of all of these things, and it hasn't, but they believe that it has because nobody, the bishops, the priests, are not talking about it anymore. Oh, well, idol worship must not be that bad because Francis did it and nobody condemned it. Oh, well, yeah, all dogs go to heaven because Francis said so and nobody came out and condemned it. Oh, well, it's okay for us to get divorced and remarried and still receive communion because, Francis allowed it, so it must be okay. Like, people actually believe that stuff. People believe like that. People think like that. Because what you're doing is called tacit acceptance. If you're not speaking up against it, then you are, by your silence, accepting it or agreeing with it. And people follow that. So please, Bishop Cordy Leon, Bishop Barron, Cardinal Dolan, any others that are listening to me right now, please speak up. Take up more room in the culture. Take up more room. Spread the truth of Jesus Christ and of salvation and how people can get it, how people can attain it. And please stand up and say what is right and true and put down these different heresies, these different notions and theological errors in the culture. We can't do it alone. God bless you.